This podcast is brought to you by Always Possible.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
Greetings, fellow travellers of Earth. This is the Possibility Club podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And in this episode, we're going to return to the nuanced interplay between artificial intelligence and human ingenuity. Can machines complement our creativity, or will they eclipse the essence of human touch in professions once thought impermeable to automation? As we navigate the digital era's complexities, questions of equity, diversity, and the human experience within the tech landscape become increasingly pressing. How do we harness AI to foster inclusivity and bridge divides rather than widen them? Amidst the relentless pace of innovation, where does the individual find their footing? And how do we cultivate resilience and adaptability in a workforce facing unprecedented shifts? We're looking at ethical AI again, and I think we'll be looking at again, and AI for good. And what does that mean? Concepts that champion the integration of technology with a conscience. Yet we know the realization of these ideals is not confined to algorithms. It is about people and the teams that craft them. A cultural shift, with organisations putting a mirror up to the diversity and ethical world that they aspire to see for the technical creations they make. The quest for a tech-enabled future that prioritises equity over efficiency, humanity over haste. Is that where we're heading? These are challenges that make us rethink not just how we work, but why we work. And in this episode, we navigate these waters with an expert who's at the intersection of work futures and technology, with a keen eye on the evolving workplace and the intricate dance between machine learning and human talent. My guest offers insights into creating a work environment that cherishes creativity, collaboration, and caring. As we think about the role of AI in reshaping what careers we might build and the essence of human interaction at work, how might we build a future that leverages tech to enhance and not diminish the human experience? I'm Richard Freeman. This is the Possibility Club. My very special guest this episode is work futures and technology expert, Dr. Nima Pasha. So this is the Possibility Club. I'm Richard Freeman, and you're very, very welcome. Simple format. I chat to someone extraordinary about what they're doing, but the focus is on bravery and change and impact and what's going on in the world of business and learning and communities in the 21st century that might be a sign of what's to come. And I'm interested in the people that are rolling up their sleeves and doing it. And I'm definitely excited to be talking today to Dr. Nima Pasha, who is a world expert in the world of work, the role of technology and AI on the workforce, and our evolving conversation about equality, diversity, inclusion, what that means to who we are and how we choose who we hire and how we develop people and talent. And I think it's a really pertinent conversation for these times. So I'm excited to explore it. First of all, the only standard question I ask everybody, how the devil are you?
Thank you very much. I thought you were going to say, what did you have for breakfast or something like this?
You can tell me what you had for breakfast.
No, I'm very well. And I had a very nice breakfast of Greek yogurt and papaya, which is unusual for me. But I bought this papaya and I thought and it was good. Thank you for asking.
Locally sourced, I'm sure, from the papaya plantations
that I have in my garden. Yeah.
Yes. You until recently you were at Henley Business School, weren't you? You were working on the Institute for Future Work, World Work, which I do want to hear about. You've had a book out recently, and you're sort of navigating the world of business and how to support different businesses in their journeys. So tell me what are the things you're talking about, hearing about? What's the crux of the conversation at the moment in terms of this issue around building workforces in a sustainable, sensible, and fair way?
This has been a year I've had, so it's really great to talk to you at this time in my my career. So having had a secure career, but working, as you say, I was working at Henley Business School, University of Reading, and I was director there of careers as well as diversity, equity and inclusion, and also set up, as you pointed out, the World of Work Institute, which we can go back to. But it was secure and it was also exciting, and I really enjoyed it. But then I got headhunted to leave this safe, secure environment to go and work in a tech company, and which didn't work out, sadly, working in that organization. And this whole year has been experiencing different tech firms, different organizations, as a freelancer, as an associate, and then working, independently, working with other people. And I've also been job hunting. And as part of my job hunting, what I did was to do quite a lot of networking. So I met even more people, even more businesses, to find out what they're up to. And obviously, you and I had conversations to find out more about your work. And actually, what's happened this year is I've got probably enough material, I think, for another book, specifically around how people are orientating themselves to the shifts in the world of work, the impact of technology, how we adapt to culture, and how we sort of work with things like sustainability targets, ESG and things. So whilst it's been like, oh my God, what a year. Did I really want this? Did I not want to stay in a secure world? And part of me obviously thinks that, but the other part of me is I'm actually really incredibly, weirdly grateful for having this year of upheaval to make me look at things differently.
It must be quite a strange, useful perspective to both be looking for work, but at the same time being, your knowledge about the process of that and what companies should and shouldn't be doing. So that must be quite interesting and probably quite frustrating as well, because you're seeing jobs being advertised in ways that are bafflingly complicated and full of conscious or unconscious bias. This can sound like a brag. It really isn't. It's only because I, was mad enough to set up my own business. I haven't had to really apply for a job for about 15 years. And I imagine it's massively different now. What's the best practice that you can see out there, in terms of companies that are really on the ball and are leaning into kind of what's needed, what's right, how they're using technology, how they're using language, how they're thinking about creating the workforce they need rather than just the one they're familiar with?
It is quite weird. So having worked in the side of graduate recruitment, where there were thousands of people going through processes, and now myself in the process of applying to jobs, being part of a pool, just the job hunting experience has been interesting. The most important thing is firms to humanize the process. This comes through on forums. This is my own experience. And you push through a automated system, and the systems are better now in terms of scanning and understanding words and nuances, but you just are in a pipeline and you usually don't hear back. And so the ghosting experience is quite strange. And I kind of think since the whole process, since all these massive systems are set up, just a handful of big organizations are processing these. So, because I go back on it and it goes, oh, do you want to use your CV that you used last time? And I thought, no, that's not adapted to this job. So I have to don't put that one in. So therefore I know that your data is kept, and then it's pushed through this funnel. And then when you get ghosted at the end, I kind of think, you see, your automotive systems should allow for feedback to go through the whole process, and they should allow to go through at a rejection stage as well. And it's not that many organizations that come back with a rejection. And I don't know why. So I think, you're a corporate brand. Coming back to the humanizing process is that sometimes, occasionally something will come back to say, sorry, but we're not going through. One of the things that's most frustrating that people talk about is that when people go too far to say, we're so grateful, you're fantastic, and you came so far. One of these things, it just feels insincere. So I think the balance, and there's enough intellect in organizations to be able to go through and think, how do we manage this process because it's just a decent thing to do. And actually, it's good for the recruitment brand as well. So not to ghost, use conversation that's well when you are in contact. And the best response I had was, it was a rejection, but it was so personalised. It was for a diversity post, and it was from a big leisure company. Their HR director said, I make a point of contacting people.
So important, isn't it? And I think, once a business gets so big or so hungry for, new staff, it's perspective on just what a big deal it is for people and what a big ask it is for people to put themselves on the line, to be judged, to be, taking a punt on putting themselves forward into an unknown. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to apply for a job, and you have very little power in that relationship.
No, exactly.
I was chairing an event yesterday about AI in particular and its role in small business growth. And there was an ethicist on the panel, and he was he was using the Amazon as a case study. This is a company that all around the world, but including the UK, needs tens of thousands of staff going through its recruitment system all the time. The churn is enormous. And so they had created AI tools to be able to sift through and filter in their mind, use formula to identify the top 10% and then reject the 90%, outright, without a human being involved in any of that. They'd only come involved when they were looking through the 10%. But the biases within the algorithms meant that they had a look at it, and there were certain key words that were either particularly feminine or or they were considered to be feminine, or didn't represent a particular sort of way of using language, that meant they were being immediately rejected. And so people were sort of testing to see, highly qualified, very, very smart people, were getting rejected because they'd mentioned that they'd done some volunteering with an animal charity or something like that. And so they're immediately gone. It's absolutely absurd. And from my understanding, Amazon ditched the whole thing, spent millions and millions and millions on this process, but have now recognized that it's not fit for purpose. And they don't know how it can be, because you just can't replicate the sort of human eye on the nuances at that scale, which is, I think it's really interesting. And I'm sure they'll try and get back to it at some point with better technology. But it just goes to show that it's not robots hiring robots.
But the other thing I was just thinking about the processes is the number of interviews that employers are wanting people to go through. I had 8 for when I joined the company I left. Why? That was 8, and there are people that talk about having 20.
Yeah.
Or the processes are taken through. And why you really? I think talent acquisition people do want to hurry the process on, because good candidates will get picked up by other people. But what I think this links to is employers feeling, because the market's quite choppy and difficult, that they have there's still an idea that people are really grateful to go and work for an organization, and that you put through that process because you'd be lucky to come here. And in the candidate world, and all of us, particularly the pandemic, are perhaps looking at work slightly differently and thinking, well, there's more things to life than purely work or purely your identity. Our identities are kind of multifaceted. But I think through the recruitment process, it still feels like, you should be grateful, and we'll put you through these ridiculous amount of tests and interviews, and then you get a job.
It just feels out of date. I mean, I'd be worried that someone would have the time to do 20 interviews, regardless of the job or the salary or whatever's on offer. That would raise a flag for me. There's no one else vying for them. It's like, so what's going on here? Why do they want to be here so much? Oh, it's bizarre, isn't it?
This podcast is brought to you by Always Possible. But who are we?
Always Possible works with ambitious businesses, charities, and public services that are thinking about what's next.
From architects to aerospace companies, puppet theatres to primary schools, business networks to big data analysts.
If you're wanting to be brave with some big decisions, or to be clearer about what to prioritise, then an award-winning workshop from the Always Possible team is a brilliant starting point.
We care about just one thing: building ideas that work.
For creative, intuitive, and practical expertise, consider Always Possible as your strategic partner. Find out more about how we could power up your mission. Visit alwayspossible.co.uk.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
This city.
This is a quick note to say that the Brighton Paradox will be back. Season 2 will be a shorter, tighter series looking at the energy, impatience and opportunity happening in post-pandemic Brighton and Hove. We're examining the landscape across the city in 2024, what's changing, what's building in economics, culture, community and technology. Why are people telling me that they are in fight or flight mode? What is the significance of a council with an overall majority? How is artificial intelligence maybe changing the way people solve problems in the city? And of course, how has a podcast changed the lives of Brighton's children? And it's not this one. All new interviewees and all new explorations of the city. But right now we're still gluing the jigsaw together, so you'll have to wait a little bit longer. But we are delighted to announce that we're being supported again by Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club, who return as brilliant headline sponsors and partners. And the University of Brighton's Help to Grow management programme also returns as a really valuable project partner. And in addition, we have 2 new supporters, the exceptional folk at EQ Investors and the legends at Midnight Communications, and we couldn't do this without all of these visionary people. Brilliant. Thank you. Take care. Speak soon.
So as an academic, what's the academic perspective on this then? You know, how has it felt that, you know, kind of systems and, you know, maybe policy and you know, looking at how the things like the Equalities Act and so on are put into practice? What has your research thrown up that then becomes something that filters into or trickles into the way that businesses work and change their behaviour and start to apply the findings so that they can do it better?
So, well, the research at the business school is at Henley was just earlier today. So just hearing about the latest kind of research that's going on, the research I did, I feel there's quite a strong area of research that links to what we just said about linking to the candidate experience and the employee experience in work and how that's shifted. And it's been shifting perhaps for a while, where people are pushing back to the, if I call it the Silicon Valley kind of culture of quite male kind of bro culture. It's pushing back from this hustle culture. I hear so much. This year has been a real experience of hearing the term "we're about the hustle," "we're about the hustle culture," hearing that quite a lot with employers. And we need you to. Then again, we're going back to the recruitment side of it. I have been put off adverts when they're being like, "You've got to put in the 120% and, you know, work hard, play hard," that kind of language that people put in there. And I think no, I'm not going to apply there. They may not be like that, because you think some places they go, "We're creative, exciting," and then you go for the interview and then there's like this little grey desk in the corner. You think, So there's a mismatch what people say anyway. But so there's people pushing back that, and there's people wanting, as I say, this identity of us just not being workers, that we are also doing other things. We have families, or we have commitments, and or we just want to have hobbies or anything. So one of the things that people are expecting is flexibility. And, you know, we could go into a little bit more about hybrid potentially, but certainly flexibility. And that also links to diversity, in that people are expecting to be able to have time to take their children to school, or they want to just have time to look after themselves, or, you know, well-being. All these kind of things seem to be much more in the psyche of workers. And there's just a report done recently at Henley about bosses wanting people back in the workplace, having what's called a proximity bias, that if I will trust you more if I can see you better visibly. There's a shift in culture. There's importance of looking at how we incorporate diversity into workplaces, and how we manage, as you just talked about, biases in AI, looking at technology. That's the kind of things I see. And linked to that, of course, are the kind of skills we should have, that kind of thing.
and you're a behavioral psychologist by sort of specialism. I think it must be fascinating to look at, both the behavior and the psychology of businesses at the moment in this post-pandemic world, trying to figure out how to be as flexible as possible, yet also, as you say, see people and have that sense of control over productivity. And I think there are many people that are really trying to do the right thing, are trying to recognize that we work differently now, and actually some of us spent 3 years feeling hyperproductive. Actually, that now being normalized is something we never would have imagined a few years ago in most sectors.
There's this little cafe in Henley when I walk past, and I'm thinking, that looks a fantastic place, because they've got a little sign up saying £10 for the day and 20% off coffees. And I think, I should go there. This is ideal. And they've got a set, and it's a little bit away from the main section of the cafe. So they've kind of created this little hub for co-working, and nobody's there. That's the thing. Every time I walk past, I always go, I should go there. Oh, hold on, nobody's there. So this train of thoughts is exactly the same every time. But one of the articles I read, Wired actually, which you may have crossed, is Grindr, saying that people had to go back into the office, and that was really impactful, because people had chosen places to work, chosen to work in Grindr because they could be, they didn't want to feel that, they said they worked in previous places where they were the only person who was from an LGBT background, and working in Grindr, they could be completely bring their whole selves to work. The statement that people used for a while, they could be themselves, and they'd move to places, and because you could work remotely, they'd move to places where they felt more comfortable, they felt more accepted, they developed a community. And then when this happened, and then they had to kind of move, this was upsetting for people. It's like, the corporates not understanding the impact of where we live, how we work affects how we behave in the workplace, behavioral sciencely. And one of the studies I did during lockdown and then since was to look at what factors really enable people to engage in the workplace. And I looked at HR directors from different organizations, and I looked at one company from a whole bunch of different jobs that they were doing. And there was 3 factors that came out, which I'm really happy to share. So what people wanted was to be able to collaborate. So obviously this will be no surprise as most research does come out, but it's good to just have it anyway, just to confirm what we know. So being able to collaborate was really important, and being able to collaborate in a way that allowed for diversity to come into place. So what people said, for example, when they did the equity report, is that when we collaborate on video conferencing, we feel a bit more equal, whereas then we feel that in some ways when we're at work, secret projects are given to other people. The equity effect found that projects were given to people without them knowing. There's no access. You're not going for a coffee with the boss or playing golf or whatever it is, however these networks happen. So collaboration is really important, but done in a fair way and a visible way. Being able to be creative. We go to work in order to, as you say, we want to put the washing machine on and then set, and pick the kids up, whatever we've got. But in between those time, we're thinking, well, how can I stretch myself? What meaning has work to me? How do I feel satisfaction in the work I'm doing? What impact am I making? And that's what we all go to work for and chosen particular career paths. So being able to do that and be creative around that is really something that what I found was really important. And the final one was caring. We still want to feel a sense of that people care for us, look out for us, and we'll have our well-being looked after, and we can also do the same for other people. And that was those 3 came up, the 3 C's I call them, and that was the same in physical places as well as online. I started it as an online kind of study, when we were all in lockdown, but working on it since, focusing a lot more, it became much stronger. And actually one of the things that has become much stronger as I've been working with firms looking at this is the caring thing. And I was really surprised, because I thought a lot of people might go, this is just soft, cuddly nonsense. We've got to focus on the productivity, the collaboration, how we move forward. But actually, caring has come up so often in organizations that people want to know how they can make it more explicit, how they can show that a lot more. People are feeling stressed, overworking, long hours, thinking about work, neglecting their health. And so actually people found the caring piece has been really important, not just to care for others and teams, but ourselves as well.
You've done quite a lot of thinking and looking at artificial intelligence. Where's it working? Or more importantly, what's its potential to work? Is there a way that AI can shape more personalized work experiences?
The more I'm into it, I am more wary of it, actually. So just to say that up front, I think we have to, just to say why I'm wary, I think the impact on our jobs is important to consider, whether it takes certain jobs out. Whereas when we first started hearing about AI, it's just going to take routine jobs, dangerous jobs, the jobs that nobody wants to do. But now we've got a technology like ChatGPT that is actually coming for more creative roles as well. And the last piece of work, I've just finished a book chapter on looking at coach bots, chatbots, essentially, in the space of human interaction. And this is the kind of space that we think, no, AI cannot come into this bit. AI is not going to be part of something to offer us therapy and coaching and support, because this requires skills of empathy and care. Well, we're talking about caring and, understanding. A machine can't do that, but actually the research, the work I looked at into that area has been phenomenal. It's been absolutely incredible what AI can now do in that space. AI has bias because it's taking what we all put out there and it's learning that and putting it into the algorithms and it's learning from it. They are now in certain coach bots as well. That technology. And why I'm really interested is looking at the research I did on race equity, what we found, and other people in Henley have done a further study on this, is that people were biased. Whoa, we're completely not surprised that people are biased. And what we found with the AI, it could be less biased in giving coaching, which is like kind of we're moving towards this, and maybe we might think, well, I'll use the bot instead. So it could come after the kind of jobs we never thought would happen, unless we start saying, actually, I'm okay with that because humans are flawed. I would still prefer a human to come in and give me this advice, because what the AI is doing, and people are forming some of the coach bots and the personal bots are, the language is so good that people are forming relationships and connections with the bot, which I completely understand, because it's asking us kind of questions that are quite intense. And
and ChatGPT is naturally, I heard someone describe it recently, it's a people pleaser. It wants to answer your question in the way that you'll be happy with, and that's where sometimes it makes stuff up.
Yeah.
We just need to understand that, and so be prepared to say, have you told me the truth?
And if you use coaching, which is a slightly different form of AI than ChatGPT, called conversational AI, coming from a slightly different area, the language is incredibly conversational, even more conversational than ChatGPT. And it will ask you, I'm here for you. I can, and its guardrails are wider, so you can ask more personal stuff. And it's giving advice, but it's a machine. But even I'm getting sucked into saying,
it is seductive, and if we look back at the last 50, 60 years of science fiction, we've been presented with this as normal for a long time. We've seen HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey. We've seen C-3PO. We've seen these computerized AI assistants that have emulated genuine human emotion.
Robot surgeons are performing really well in lung cancer treatment and things. So we're probably thinking precision, data, accuracy, vast data analysis, which is much better and therefore used for sustainability, climate, these big wicked problems that we're having. That's probably the kind of area that we think, yes, that's great. And even in recruitment selection, that we can understand it, that we can say, be less biased, all that kind of thing, and introduce fairness. Where I'm concerned, what I feel concerned is when we're handing over decisions to algorithms, we should accept human frailties, flaws. We get things wrong. I'd rather a flawed human than the machine, because the machine is learning from me and it's learning better and better each time, whereas we can't do the same. It's
so big, and it's the 70-80% of conversations I'm having are all coming back to this at the moment in the world of work and the world of education. It's the single unifier at the moment, but it does feel that we've got so much further to go to make our minds up about what we want. My final question for you talked earlier, careers was your specialty. You were head of careers at Henley. A lot of my work is around designing or co-designing or working with educators to help bridge the knowledge gap between, formal education and the world of work. But it does feel like, we really should be quite a bit further along talking to young people. Let's move on from the conversation that AI is going to take away all of the jobs that you should be entitled to do, but having a conversation about how to work with it, how to understand it, how to understand its limitations, how to be that flawed human working alongside an artificial intelligence assistant, knowing what to ask it, knowing what not to ask it, knowing how to get the best out of it. Yet my worry is that in a lot of education institutions, especially universities, are sort of their policy is don't talk about it, make sure they don't use it, because all they want to do is cheat.
Because education systems are measured, you measure how somebody can recall, synthesize, and come through with ideas that they've been taught in an exam or an essay. And because that we can use a ChatGPT to do that, that's why they're worried. So I think in some ways we might be going back to paper and pencil in an exam hall, and that you write out your answers, because that's a way that you can assess that. So I'm just saying that could be something that might happen, that we might have to go back to those kind of things. We might even go to shops where it will say no AI used here because we don't want our retina scanned, and pick up the colors that we're going for. So then it sends us something on Instagram later. We might go to that. But when we're talking about skilling, the research I did on this for my doctorate is that it rather than the skills of like let's teach like coding and STEM and all this kind of thing, that can be there. But what is more important is for us to start understanding ourselves, and then working with young people how to understand ambiguity, work through uncertainty, and therefore what skills are really important. That's what I've worked on, the kind of skills about how to analyze something, how to be focused, how to go through these sort of complexities that we have and work out where we are and how we progress. Because one of the things, if we say people say AI is our friend and how do we work with it, it is for now, but it'll change. We weren't expecting ChatGPT, we weren't used to having this kind of technology at our fingertips even a year ago. The rate of change is fast and new things are coming in. So I think it's that bit that we have to work with young people on, is to understand you are valuable, you are brilliant, you have got capability. How can we understand? How can you understand your strengths? How can you move those forwards? How are you adaptable? What do you need to do? And how do you need to keep learning as well? So lifelong learning is a thing that we talked about a lot, and it sounds a bit boring, but essentially refreshing, understanding, and learning, because that's what AI does, is that we need to ourselves do that. So I think being able to, and that's from my research, and those people that keep learning, understand themselves, take a positive view, understand how to sort of manage uncertainty, end up being, more able to manage this uncertainty and therefore more successful in their careers.
What are you excited about for 2024 for you, but also maybe in terms of some of these conversations moving forward?
I think equity is going to be more important, equity, diversity, and AI will probably enable that to work better. And I think I'm really hoping to do more in that space. And what I'd like to do perhaps next year, just from my experience here, is to help firms really, because what I found was people talk about responsible AI, ethical AI, AI for good and all that kind of thing. It doesn't happen in a petri dish. It happens with teams coming together and saying, who are we? And I found the work when we're an ethical team, or we're an organization that wants to do good, and whatever good is, including making a profit but impacting people and the planet as well, maybe, all that kind of thing, is that how do you do that as a leadership team? How do you get that in an organization? How do you build that culture? Quite hard things like how do you kind of tackle discrimination? How, what the piece I've just done recently found that I think there's about 27% women who are in tech, but that has gone down in the last 2 years. So if we want safer AI, is the AI safety summit that the Prime Minister held recently. If you want safer AI, more ethical AI, blah, 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 all that kind of thing, then we need that in our teams and our organisations. So that's what I'd like to do.
Well, all power to your elbow.
Thank you.
There's certainly many, many, many people who need you to do that.
Lovely.
For them, so hopefully that will all
thank you.
synergise. Lovely to speak to you, Nima. Thank you so much for your time and being on the Possibility Club.
It's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you for listening to the Possibility Club, Practical Bravery. If you enjoyed this episode, do like, share, review, tell everybody about it. Look in the show notes for all the details of today's guest, stuff we talked about, stuff that's of interest, new things to read, new things to listen to. And if you are running a business or a charity and you are trying to accelerate or improve the impact that you have in the world, if you want to be famous for what you do and what you change rather than just what you sell, then talk to us. alwayspossible.co.uk. We want to hear from you, we want to talk to you, we want to amplify and elevate your ideas, and who knows, we might be able to help you feel more confident and clear about what's next. alwayspossible.co.uk. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new special guest and a new insight on practical bravery in action.
The Possibility Club is an Always Possible podcast. The interviewer was Richard Freeman for Always Possible, and the producer and editor was me, Chris Thorpe Tracy, for Lo-Fi Arts. Have a good week.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
Lo-Fi Arts.